Oh, Allison, I have an interest in this business too.
Sugarbaker Associates, 4 women, 1 very uncomfortable sofa, and more political heat packed into a 22-minute sitcom than most cable news shows managed in a week. Designing Women ran on CBS from 1986 to 1993. The show followed 4 Southern women running an interior design firm in Atlanta called Sugarbaker Associates. Dixie Carter played Julia Sugarbaker, elegant, furious, and capable of dismantling a stranger's entire worldview in under 90 seconds. Delta Burke played Suzanne, her ex-beauty queen sister, selfish, glamorous, and somehow impossible not to love. Annie Potts was Mary Jo, the sharp-tongued divorced single mother. Jean Smart was Charlene, the sweet, naive farm girl from Missouri, who made everyone around her funnier just by being in the room. And Meshack Taylor was Anthony, the delivery man who walked in for 1 episode and stayed for 7 seasons. The show ran 7 seasons, tackled AIDS before politicians would say the word, and launched a real-world firestorm that outlasted its final episode by decades. It was funny, it was bold, and behind the scenes, a spectacular wreck in the most riveting possible way. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts about designing women you probably didn't know. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. And stick around for number 1, because it involves a woman who stood beside her best friend at her wedding, then couldn't speak to her for 11 years. All right, let's get into it with number 15. Number 15, CBS tried to quietly cancel this show. The audience had other plans. Here's how you save a television show in 1986. You write letters, 50,000 of them. When Designing Women debuted on CBS's Monday night lineup, the ratings were solid. Not spectacular, but solid. Then CBS started moving it. Sunday nights, other slots. The schedule shifted so many times that Jean Smart later said her own mother couldn't keep track of what night she was on. She'd call and ask, "What night are you on now?" According to producer Harry Thomason, the show was shuffled around the schedule roughly 9 times in its first season. Ratings cratered at each new slot. CBS quietly placed the show on hiatus without announcing if or when it was coming back. In network television, that is the polite code for cancellation. Everyone knows it. The audience knew it too. And they weren't finished. Fans started organizing, modeling their campaign on the one that had rescued Cagney and Lacey a few years earlier. The advocacy group, Viewers for Quality Television, which had built its reputation by saving other quality shows from cancellation, joined the effort. Harry Thomason had personally contacted them to enlist their help. Individual viewers wrote letters by the thousands, called advertisers, and applied pressure through every available channel. Around 50,000 letters landed at CBS, 50,000, for a show that hadn't even finished its first season. CBS relented, moved the show back to Monday nights, and left it there. The show then ranked in the top 30 for 3 consecutive seasons. By 1989, paired with Murphy Brown, it was one of the most watched hours on American television. Number 14. Sugarbaker's house isn't in Atlanta. It's in Arkansas. Sugarbaker Associates. Beautiful Victorian architecture. The kind of Southern grandeur that makes you believe Julia Sugarbaker absolutely lives there. One small detail the show never mentioned. It is not in Georgia. Every exterior shot of the Sugarbaker home throughout all 7 seasons was filmed at the Angelo Marr House, also known as Villa Marr, located at 1321 Scott Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. Built in 1882, the Italianate mansion with its distinctive mansard roof is a genuine historic landmark listed on the National Register of Historic Places since 1970. It had been home to an Arkansas governor in its earlier life. The house was still privately owned when the show began. The family that lived there temporarily relocated so production could film exterior shots. They had no idea what was coming. By the time the series ended in 1993, the Villa Marr had become visually synonymous with a television show set hundreds of miles away, produced in California, starring fictional characters who had never set foot in Arkansas. When the house eventually went up for sale, the listing prominently featured its Designing Women connection. People booked trips to Little Rock specifically to stand in front of it. to take a photo of a building they had been watching on television for years, knowing now for the first time exactly where it actually was. Designing Women was set in Georgia, filmed in California. Its iconic front door is in Arkansas. The show was Atlanta in name only. Turns out all roads led to Little Rock, and nobody mentioned it for 7 seasons. Number 13, Meshach Taylor, had no script at his audition, so he made it up for 5 minutes. Anthony Bouvier was supposed to appear exactly once, a delivery man, a 1-episode guest role. That was the entire plan. When Meshach Taylor arrived to audition, there was no script waiting for him. The pages weren't finished yet. Linda Bloodworth Thomason and her husband Harry Thomason were in the room, along with the producer and head writer, and they gave Taylor a simple instruction. Here's the character we have in mind. Now show us what you'd do. Improvise. Taylor, who had spent years in ensemble theater at Chicago's Goodman Theater and the Organic Theater Company, the same company where Joe Mantegna got his start, was not thrown. He went on for approximately 5 uninterrupted minutes. In a 1990 Fresh Air interview with Terry Gross, Taylor described it plainly. "I was in good form that day. They hired him on the spot. Then the producers watched what happened when he was in scenes with Dixie Carter, Delta Burke, Annie Potts, and Jean Smart. The chemistry was immediate and easy and real, the kind you cannot write into existence. The 1-episode guest became a recurring character. The recurring character became a series regular. By season 3, Anthony Bouvier was a full cast member, with his name in the opening credits. By the final season, his character had gone from delivery man to law student to full partner in the firm. Taylor received an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a comedy series in 1989. Not bad for a character who was never supposed to come back past episode 6. Number 12, Jean Smart used a fake crossword puzzle to steal her future husband. Jean Smart met Richard Gilliland in 1986 during the first season of Designing Women before a single episode had aired. He had been cast in a recurring role as J.D. Shackelford, the boyfriend of Annie Potts' character, Mary Jo. Smart was sitting across from him at the first table read and noticed him. That smile and those little smile lines. Here was the complication. He was there to play another woman's love interest, and Smart needed information before she could make a move. So she went to Delta Burke. This was tactically sound in theory and catastrophic in execution. Smart quietly asked Burke to find out whether Gilliland was married. Delta Burke's approach to subtlety was essentially no approach at all. She walked directly up to Gilliland and announced, in front of however many people were standing there, "Jean wants to know if you're married." He was not married. The mission was accomplished, just not quietly. Smart then invited Gilliland to her dressing room under the pretense of needing help finishing a crossword puzzle. He went. They hit it off immediately. He was, by Smart's description years later, someone who could riff on something until she was gasping for air. They married in June 1987. The ceremony was held in the Rose Garden at the Brentwood home of Dixie Carter and Hal Holbrook. Number 11. Dixie Carter was a Republican, so she bartered songs for every liberal speech. Julia Sugarbaker became one of television's great progressive voices, a woman who went to war against homophobia, racism, and political cowardice in monologue after monologue for 7 seasons. Eloquent, unambiguous, and devastating. Dixie Carter was a lifelong registered Republican who privately disagreed with most of what she was saying. When show creator Linda Bloodworth Thomason, a vocal Democrat with a decades-long friendship with the Clintons, began writing those speeches for Julia, Carter found herself in an unusual professional position. She was the lead. She delivered the material. She also personally held views that frequently ran counter to every word on the page. Her solution was contractual. Carter negotiated an arrangement where, for every liberal speech she performed that she disagreed with, she received the right to sing a full song in a future episode. Real songs, performed live, with full production support. It became a recurring feature of the show, Dixie Carter, showcasing a genuine operatic soprano voice, the very talent that had been her original career ambition before a botched tonsillectomy at age 7 redirected her toward acting. The arrangement produced one of American television's great quiet ironies. The most famous progressive political speeches in sitcom history were delivered by a conservative actress who had literally bartered for the right to sing after each one. Bloodworth Thomason later said that Carter performed those speeches with more conviction than anyone could have asked for. Carter said she played the character with complete commitment, regardless of her personal politics. The baton speeches, the AIDS arguments, the Anita Hill monologue, all of them delivered by a woman who was technically getting paid in songs. Not that you could tell, not even a little. Number 10, Dolly Parton, was a devoted fan, called the show, and asked to be written in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Dolly Parton.
Here is a thing that almost never happens in Hollywood. The famous person calls the show, not their publicist, not their management. Dolly Parton herself, one of the most recognized entertainers on earth by 1990, having sold tens of millions of records and starred in films including 9 to 5 and Steel Magnolias, called the Designing Women Producers because she watched the show at home and wanted to be on it. According to press releases at the time, Parton requested the guest appearance herself, simply because she had been a longtime fan of the sitcom. She appeared in the January 1st, 1990 episode, The First Day of the Last Decade of the Entire 20th Century, a special one-hour New Year's installment built around Charlene going into labor. Parton played Charlene's guardian movie star, appearing in a dream sequence to offer guidance and reveal the gender of the baby. Think about the direction of that request. Designing Women was a Monday night CBS comedy about 4 women running an interior design firm. Dolly Parton was a global icon by any measure. She wrote I Will Always Love You. She had a theme park, and she starred in movies. She was sitting at home watching this show and decided she needed to be part of it. They didn't give her a cameo. They gave her the emotional center of the biggest episode of the season. The one-hour special built around Charlene's baby was one of the most watched episodes of Designing Women's entire run. Number 9, the creator's mother died of AIDS, and she wrote all 35 episodes alone to honor her.
You will never in a million years guess who that was.
Monette Marlin.
The first season of Designing Women premiered September 29, 1986. Linda Bloodworth Thomason had conceived it, sold it to CBS, chosen every actress, and written every script herself. Then, that same year, her mother died. Claudia Bloodworth had contracted HIV from a blood transfusion and died of an AIDS-related illness. She had been at home with her daughter while Bloodworth Thomason was writing. The two of them together, in the same house, while the scripts were coming out. Bloodworth Thomason later said the writing balanced the tragedy for her, that somehow she was honoring her mother by doing it, that if she couldn't have worked at home with her mother there, she couldn't have done it at all. She wrote the first 35 consecutive episodes of Designing Women by herself, all of Season 1, part of Season 2. No other American writer in television history had written 35 consecutive episodes of a series solo. That record still stands. The AIDS episode in Season 2, Killing All the Right People, was written directly out of that grief. Bloodworth Thomason later said she heard someone in a hospital say the disease was killing all the right people, went home in immediate fury, and wrote the script that night. The episode was dedicated to her mother, the foundation she started in 1989, the Claudia Company, which provided scholarships for rural women, was named for her. The show that tackled AIDS more directly than the president would in 7 years was written by a woman whose mother had just died of it. Every speech Julia Sugarbaker delivered about compassion and justice was coming from somewhere real. Number 8. CBS refused to cast Delta Burke. She auditioned days before filming.
Just fits my mood. It's the worst Christmas I ever had. All my vacation plans fell through.
The role of Suzanne Sugarbaker was written for Delta Burke. Bloodworth Thomason built the character around her, around the chemistry she knew Burke and Dixie Carter already had from their years working together on Filthy Rich. There was no version of this show in Bloodworth Thomason's mind where Delta Burke wasn't Suzanne. CBS disagreed. The network would not approve Burke for the pilot. Their concern was that she was too inexperienced in scripted comedy outside of Filthy Rich, which had been broad and cartoony. Not the tone Bloodworth Thomason wanted for this show. Instead, CBS pushed for Lorna Patterson, the actress who had played the lead in the TV adaptation of Private Benjamin and starred in Airplane. So they cast Patterson, and they started rehearsing, and it wasn't working. Bloodworth Thomason watched the run-throughs and knew. The part wasn't written for Lorna Patterson. It was written for Delta Burke. With filming only days away, she went back to the network and said, "Please, just let me call Delta. What do you have to lose?" Burke was in her apartment, by her own account, crying her eyes out, convinced the role had been taken from her. Then the phone rang. She came in and auditioned. The network approved her. Burke later noted the network told her not to use a Southern accent. She tried. Filming began. Years later, she watched the pilot at the Museum of Television and Radio and realized she had a full Southern accent throughout. She had thought she was hiding it. She was not. Annie Potts watched Burke walk in and said simply, "Once she came in, it all fell into place. Everything was in balance then." Number 7, Delta Burke earned the show's only acting Emmy, then lost everything over it.
Heels? I don't wear heels yet.
You do now. You need the height. Trust me, short people never win a pageant.
Here is the tragedy of it, cleanly stated. Delta Burke earned the only individual acting Emmy nomination Designing Women ever produced. Not Dixie Carter, not Jean Smart, not anyone from the original cast across 7 seasons and 18 total nominations. Delta Burke, once. For one episode. Season 4, December 1989. They shoot fat women, don't they? Suzanne Sugarbaker goes to her high school reunion and faces relentless mockery about her weight gain. The exact same mockery that tabloids were directing at the actual actress playing her. The episode was one of the most personal things the show ever attempted. The nomination came. Outstanding lead actress in a comedy series. The only one of its kind in the show's entire run. What came next is where the accounts split permanently. Bloodworth Thomason said she had spent significant effort persuading Burke to do the episode, that Burke had been reluctant to center the story on her own body. Burke said the episode was her idea entirely. Both have maintained their versions for decades. There is no third witness. What is not disputed, the credit fight that followed broke something. The relationship between Burke and the Thomasons deteriorated sharply in the months after. Tensions that had been building accelerated. By the end of season 5, Burke was gone. The episode that honored her most was the beginning of the end. She was nominated for the best work of her career. Then the dispute over who deserved credit for making it drove her out. Number 6. All 4 cast members married men from the show.
Basically the house. I think you'll find me very easy to work with. Just remember, I hate red. Other than that, you can do...
The set of Designing Women was operating at a romantic efficiency that would be remarkable even if it happened once. It happened 4 times. You already know about Jean Smart and Richard Gilliland, the crossword puzzle, the Delta Burke ambush, the June 1987 wedding in Dixie Carter's Rose Garden. That story alone should have been enough. Then there's Delta Burke. She met Gerald McCraney when he guest starred in season 2 as Suzanne's ex-husband Dash Goff. One scene required them to kiss. They were inseparable afterward. McCraney proposed on their second date. 400 guests attended the wedding in May 1989. Dixie Carter was Burke's matron of honor, which, given what's coming in number 1, you should file away. And then there's Dixie Carter and Hal Holbrook. They had already been married for 2 years when the show premiered in 1986. The producers wrote a love interest for Julia, specifically to give Holbrook a role. Attorney Reese Watson, but Holbrook kept turning it down. He had no interest in a recurring sitcom part. The producers kept asking. He kept saying no. Linda Bloodworth Thomason finally asked him one question. "Do you really want some other man making love to your wife on television?" He took the role immediately. He played Julia Sugarbaker's great love across multiple seasons. Tender, devoted, the kind of relationship television rarely shows between people in their 50s. The writers eventually gave Reese Watson a death. Holbrook filmed those scenes. He was playing the death of his own character on his wife's show, opposite the woman he actually went home to. 4 women, 4 love stories. One show where the casting process and the romance were completely indistinguishable from each other. Number 5, Jean Smart found out. She was pregnant while wearing her character's wedding dress. Jean Smart and Richard Gilliland had been married in real life since June 1987. Her character Charlene, meanwhile, was operating on her own romantic timeline on the show. The writers eventually needed to marry Charlene off. and the timing had to be managed carefully because Smart's real pregnancy was progressing and the show needed to work around it before it became impossible to conceal. Smart has described this specific night. She was sitting in her dressing room in the corseted bridal gown they had put her in for Charlene's on-screen wedding ceremony. She looked at herself in the mirror, and she simply knew. The certainty was immediate and complete. Jean, you are pregnant. You know you are pregnant. She was sitting there in someone else's character's wedding dress when she figured it out. The confirmation from her doctor came that same night. Her character got married. She found out she was actually pregnant. Both events happened on the same day, in the same building, while she was wearing the same tight corseted gown. Smart's son, Connor, was born in October 1989. The show wrote Charlene's pregnancy into the storyline. The writers literally wrote Smart's real pregnancy into the fiction and called it Just in Time, because it was. A few more weeks without the wedding episode, and the visual reality would have required an entirely different creative solution. Number 4. The creator spent 101 nights in the White House. Linda Bloodworth Thomason later wrote that she and her husband Harry spent 101 nights in the White House during the Clinton administration, not as tourists, as friends. Their friendship with Bill and Hillary Clinton predated fame on both sides. It went back to Clinton's years as governor of Arkansas, shared roots, shared ambitions, the kind of closeness that forms before anyone has anything to prove. When Clinton ran for president in 1992, it was Bloodworth Thomason who produced The Man from Hope, the biographical film shown at the Democratic National Convention. She was in those rooms. She had been for years. Designing Women ran from 1986 to 1993, simultaneously. The show's passionate positions on AIDS, sexual harassment, political cowardice, and feminist justice were not abstract creative choices taken from a comfortable distance. They came from a creator who was in the actual policy conversations, who knew the people making the actual decisions, who spent over 100 nights in the actual building where those decisions were made. When Julia Sugarbaker delivered a speech about AIDS or Anita Hill or the hypocrisy of powerful men, it wasn't a television writer's informed speculation about politics. It was a politically connected woman with a direct line to the White House using a CBS sitcom as her platform because she had convictions that needed somewhere to go. Number 3, 3 men turned down this show. One changed his mind for a woman.
Private moment to family and friends. I shall be happy to sign your annul.
The men of Designing Women had a complicated relationship with the show before they ever showed up on set. Hal Holbrook was offered the role of Reese Watson, the attorney who becomes Julia Sugarbaker's great love, multiple times. He turned it down every time. He was already an acclaimed stage and screen actor who had no interest in a recurring sitcom role. The producers kept asking. He kept declining. Linda Bloodworth Thomason finally went to him directly and said, "Do you really want some other man making love to your wife on television?" Holbrook was married to Dixie Carter. He took the role immediately and never looked back. Reese Watson became one of the show's most beloved characters, and Holbrook appeared across multiple seasons, playing the love interest of the woman he actually went home to every night. Gerald McCraney's story runs differently. His agent called to ask if he'd be interested in a guest role on some CBS sitcom. McCraney was about to start another season of Simon & Simon and turned it down. Then he asked, just out of curiosity, what show it was. When his agent said Designing Women, McCraney later recalled, he very quickly said, "I'll do it." Because he had met Delta Burke once at a publicist's luncheon and hadn't stopped thinking about her. The role that attracted him was Suzanne's ex-husband. He proposed to Delta Burke on their second date. They've been married since 1989. The role McCraney won, it went to him over John Ritter. Some love stories hinge on very small decisions. Number 2, 18 Emmy nominations, 1 win for hairstyling.
Then we got married.
You got what?
Married.
Over 7 seasons, Designing Women received 18 Emmy nominations. Outstanding Comedy Series, nominated twice. Outstanding Lead Actress, Delta Burke, nominated twice. Outstanding Supporting Actor, Meshach Taylor, nominated. Outstanding Writing, Linda Bloodworth Thomason, nominated for the AIDS episode. Outstanding Directing, nominated. Outstanding Costume Design, nominated multiple times. 1 win. in 1988 for Outstanding Achievement in Hairstyling for an episode called I'll Be Seeing You, the show that addressed AIDS before the president would say the word, that put a Republican actress in a contractual arrangement to deliver liberal speeches she disagreed with, that saved itself from cancellation through 50,000 fan letters, walked away from 7 seasons with 1 Emmy for hair. Bloodworth Thomason addressed this directly in a 30th anniversary interview. Her exact words, "It's ironic to me that designing women never got an Emmy for anything except hairdressing." Then she added what she thought that meant. "I think they were saying, 'We like your hair. You need to shut your mouth.'" That quote is now more famous than most of the Emmy speeches the show never got to give. The Emmys recognized every possible technical and creative category over those 7 years. They looked at the writing, the acting, the direction, the whole enterprise. The one thing they decided was unambiguously excellent was how the women's hair was styled in one particular episode. Number 1, Dixie Carter was Delta Burke's maid of honor, then didn't speak to her for 11 years.
All right.
It's hysterical!
This is great. Julia, I hate to tell you.
Before the show, before designing women, before any of this, Dixie Carter and Delta Burke were friends. Real ones. They had met in 1982 on the set of the CBS sitcom Filthy Rich, where Bloodworth Thomason had first assembled them. By the time Designing Women began in 1986, they had been in each other's lives for 4 years. Carter was one of the people Burke trusted most. In May 1989, when Delta Burke married Gerald McRaney, Dixie Carter stood beside her as matron of honor. You know what happened after that. According to the show's producers and cast, McRaney's arrival changed the dynamic on set. Burke began describing herself as the show's rightful star. Tensions with the Thomasons escalated into a legal dispute. Burke went on Barbara Walters in 1990 without warning the producers. Every cast member sided publicly with the Thomasons, including Dixie Carter, who had been her maid of honor, who had stood next to her 18 months earlier at her wedding. Burke was let go after season 5 in 1991. She and Carter did not speak for more than a decade. Near the holidays after her firing, Burke went to Carter's dressing room to try to apologize. She later described what happened. She went in and said that for what we once had, she was sorry for any pain she'd caused. But she said she didn't think Dixie was really ready to hear it yet. She walked out of that dressing room and didn't try again for years. Carter, in a separate interview, said simply, "We were really close. I was at her wedding. The truth of the matter is, I love Delta. I always have, and I always will." She just couldn't say that to her yet. They reconciled in 2002 when Burke guest starred on Carter's series Family Law. 11 years after Burke had walked out of that dressing room. They appeared together again in 2003 for the Designing Women reunion special. By the time Carter died in April 2010 at 70, they were at peace. And there you have it. 15 weird facts about designing women. Which one surprised you most? Let us know in the comments below. And hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, whole enterprise. The one thing they decided was unambiguously excellent was how the women's hair was styled in one particular episode.